Hello everyone, welcome to this new episode of Cooperative City in Dialogue. Today we are featuring international placemakers and researchers on the topic, and we have the network of placemaking and dynamics of placemaking and Place City with us, and also place play space project. And we want to discuss today how can we make placemaking winter-proof and pandemic-proof. This is obviously very important because some are already in partial lockdown. The school started, the university started, but we are more or less indoors, and we need this public space to engage, to continue our communal and community works. I want to thank my colleague Jorge in the Facebook chat. He will be collecting all the feedback, questions, and so on, and bring it back to the panel today. And my name is Bahanur Nasya from Utopian. I'm in the Vienna office. It's raining. Winter is really coming. And I would immediately like to jump into the dialogue and welcome my first panelist, Nicole Shea. She is the editor of the Europe Now journal and chair of the Cost Action Dynamics of Placemaking. Hello, Nicole. Where are you joining us from?
Thank you, Bahanur, and I'm joining you from Berlin right now. Thank you, everyone. I'm very excited to be part of this group today. And I thought that I would start out talking about the challenges that we have had in the cost action. I'm actually joined here by my colleague today, Conor Horan from Dublin. And I think we're looking right now at a much larger challenge, and that is how traditional forms of networking have changed, how the idea of work has changed, and how we have to deal with young researchers who can no longer use their professional exchanges around conferences and face-to-face interactions. We know a lot of financial programs at universities have cut their international programs, their exchange programs. So there is a general sense of what I would call an anxiety culture developing around what we will have in the future for those researchers that are either going on the market or want to be part of community efforts. And so what we are looking at, I think, with this upcoming winter season is that there is heightened anxiety, particularly in those educational in the education in general for young researchers, but also for high schoolers. So young adults have this increased anxiety. And I feel that we as a group need to use the digital space. And I see the digital space as an opportunity as well. I mean, the pandemic is on the one hand causing immobility and anxiety, but on the other hand, also the dwelling gives us a new source of inspiration, I feel, that will allow us to work together across actions, across grants, and build a grant sharing culture. And that's what I think we should really focus on, so that people don't feel their best years are stolen. So what I would encourage us as a group and as action members and research groups to think about is how we can provide spaces and create new places for those young populations by also including those that were previously excluded, such as the Global South. We don't have financial barriers at the moment. We don't have so much of really borders because that is erased by the digital space. So how can we work together and at the same time prepare for the winter month when global mental health will become much more of an issue? I mean, we have seen in young adults a rising number if you look at the percentage. So what kind of health interventions can we think and build through community actions? And at that point, I would like to just give the word to other participants, but I would love to hear from you how you have been working already on that, and would love to see how our cost action can contribute. And when it comes to it, I can also give a couple of examples of how this could work, in my opinion.
Thank you very much, Nicole. My next guest is Anna Bradley. She is leading the Placemaking Europe toolbox, and she, with the aim to exchange digitally all those experiences gathered in different places, mostly in Europe, but also in Asia, in America, and so on. Hello, Anna. Where are you joining us from?
Hello, I'm joining you from Bussum in the Netherlands. It's a village outside of Amsterdam. Thank you for having me. Yes, so
You organized
I'm
already.
here from Placemaking Europe. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I just wanted to know how you are collecting projects, placemaking projects, try to gather the information in as a tool, and what happens now, and how do you deal with the current challenges which were mentioned by Nicole, or did you experience any changes in the last month in the community?
Absolutely, yeah. So we do collect tools and categorize tools, open access for all to see, to learn from, to share their experiences across contexts. And so much about the last months is, of course, been digital. So there's been so much exchange about ideas, but then when it comes to testing them, we have to do it in an entirely different way now, where we're taking care of these precautions and keeping our distance. So the big challenge is, how can we connect emotionally on a human level while staying physically distant and safe? So we're really inspired by a lot of tools that have come out of this situation, looking at how our needs can be met during the pandemic. So we've had a tool all about being at home with your children and how to make the home a really creative, captivating space for the children. We have some amazing tools coming from Nabolagshager and Oslo, looking at how to connect in public and then also connect in the digital space as well, about food. So things are really inspiring, but it's been a big shift. And now is the challenge, as we've heard from Nicole, about the wintertime and mental health. So this will be a big focus for us going forward, and finding tools and applications for activating our public space and staying emotionally connected while in the chilly time.
Thank you very much, Anna. My next guest is Conor. He is responsible for transferability of placemaking activities. Hello, Conor. Where are you joining us from?
Hi, and welcome from Dublin. Yeah, just to introduce what Nicole started, I'm one of the working group leaders of 4 working group leaders within the cost action. And we're focused on transferring knowledge and certainly network maintenance. So we're particularly interested in getting participants from Placemaking Europe involved, and some collaboration between the cost action and Placemaking Europe. I'm particularly interested in placemaking from a knowledge management perspective and a knowledge transfer perspective. So when I'm looking at engagement between practitioners and academics or researchers, I'm looking at how that engagement is improved or is more productive. And what particularly interests me in a COVID environment is that all of the means in which we typically engage, they've been restricted. And what you're finding is that the tools we use are much more virtual. So I'm particularly interested from a research point of view in the different dialogues that we have. So there are different forms of dialogical exchanges between people, which have now gone online or become more virtual, with artifacts and objects, which that is completely restricted, particularly in a tourist environment where you have people who can't interact with a city space, and they're now interacting with virtual versions of those city spaces. But also with ideas. Our artifacts are linked to different ideas that we have, and how we use those ideas as a form of engagement. And really what's happening in the COVID environment is we're switching to those ideas, and how we convey them in a virtual sense now becomes much more challenging. And so all of the different activities that Anna was discussing, even that, you know, how do you engage different communities, children in different ways in a restricted virtual context. So that's my interest in particular dialogical exchange within broader engagement.
Thank you very much, Conor. My next guest is Clara Raich from Nabolagshager in Oslo, and she is exactly doing this. She is working with students in Oslo. Hello, Clara. Where are you joining us from?
I'm in Oslo and it's sunny, and I'm so glad that you're having me. Thanks.
You have been working since 1.5 years almost with a particular school there, and how was the development, and where do you stand now, and what are you going to do this winter with the school pupils, students?
So we've been working with them and with youth researchers, and right now we just started building furniture with like young students. Which was really engaging and good to create an outdoor space which is safe, where they can hang out after like school hours, which I think was really a good way of like creating a physical space for them, especially because a lot of them struggle with mental health issues, which you, Nicole, had talked about. And just share a picture from that. Here. Here you can see the young people building together and planting, and also we've been working on collecting different tools together with Anna, and we have like one on light installations, which I think will be useful for this winter, and also an activity trail, which is like a physical engagement combined with digital elements, which is very playful. I think Lily will have more to talk about playful spaces, and then also like combining food and digital and in-person places and manuals, which you will be finding on the European Placemaking website. This is developed by Cruz, and this one is developed by my colleague Helena. So I think the quarantine gave us the possibility to kind of create new spaces for dialogue, which you kind of were talking about, which are like both physical but also digital. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Clara. I think the work in Oslo is very important. I would like to introduce you to our next speakers. There are 3 of them. So Lily, Ioana, and Bruno. Would you like to introduce yourself? And where are you joining us from?
Hi, I'm Lily. Well, we're all 3 joining from Rotterdam. So Bruno and Ioana and I are working a lot with play and with urban games as a tool for activating public spaces, building community, and empowering people to be more active players in their city. So Ioana and I last winter had a chance to collaborate with Placemaking Europe, and that's how we got in contact with this network. And we wanted to share a bit about a game that we've been developing since March, since the day the pandemic kind of became real in all of our minds. We were really inspired by using these rules for social distancing actually as something that we can play with. So we developed this game. It's an analog game actually called Wander. And it's played by 2 people who call each other on the phone, and they walk 15 meters apart from each other through the city. And the little booklet kind of tells you what the rules of the game are, but it also tells you some nice prompts that you can ask each other to do that hopefully spark interesting interactions with public space and also help you get to know each other better. So I just wanted to read 2 of them. This one says, walk in the direction that looks the ugliest. What makes something beautiful to you? So this is kind of it spontaneously directs you through the city, but it also brings up these really interesting conversations between the players. And this other one that I love is sit somewhere you're not supposed to sit. How do you relate to unspoken rules?
They are wonderful tasks. I love
So
them.
this is a whole book of these type of tasks. Maybe Ioana wants to say something about, I saw you nodding when Anna was saying, how do we connect people?
Yeah, I was actually, I wanted to like maybe emphasize the relevance of collaborations in this time, because I come from an architectural background, so I work a lot with physical spaces and designing playful physical spaces that are a lot based on physical proximity. And working with Lily, which comes from a background in social design and play and applied play, was very interesting because we got a chance to kind of bridge the gap between the two and see how can play and proximity be tackled in a way in which it's still safe. So yeah, I think that's something like to keep in mind throughout the winter, is you can still be together and have this intimacy while renegotiating these rules of distance, like we have done with Wonder, and we have actually done it with other games in the past, in which we just take the constraints and we think, okay, how can we be slower around them? How can we not force an interaction, but appreciate? And instead, in some ways of taking space, how do we give space as an action? But actually, I know, Lily, you and Bruno are working on a placemaking project in Rotterdam, which I think is quite interesting. So I'm going to segue into that.
Bruno, tell us about it. You are muted.
You're muted.
Yes. So this is a project Lily and I have been proposing just very recently. It's for the redevelopment of a big area here in Rotterdam. They wondered, how can we activate people to think about it, create a buzz around it, let's say, but also how can it be the starting point of community building? But even more importantly, but one of the three outcomes, let's say, is how could this connect to a plan of requirements of the city for further development of this area. And so we looked at all three aspects. And so the idea is to create these playwalks, and we've created three different ones that each do a different thing as output. So they all are based around the concept of playwalks, which Lily initiated and I soon got on board with. So we do that together now. And so this will let them see, for instance, the metaphor through the eyes of a metaphor, a certain area. Let's say if this area was a catwalk, where would be the jury members to sit and judge the passers-by? What does it mean for the hedges? Should they be high or should they be low? So the result in, and then we go through a couple of these metaphors which bring out different possible design criteria that can be put in the plan of requirements of the city. Whereas at the same time, first we sensitize the participants in walking through that area to see it really through those eyes, not from behind a desk or a computer, and then sit together and start an ideation phase in which we make it a bit more tangible, for which we use certain card sets and even some serious Lego play.
Thank you very much, Bruno. We have our first question from the audience. Jan Ling is asking, where can we get the Wonder book? Any ideas? Is it available for everyone or downloadable?
It's downloadable on my website, which is www.
We will link the website of Lily in the chat, but also in the article. So this dialogue will be on our website, available all the time. And in the text body, we will have all the links to all speakers today. Thank you, Lily.
Yes. So it's on my website, and you can find it under work and then Wander, and there's a link to download the PDF.
Perfect. Thank you very much. The work of you brings me also to the topic what we have in Place City in Vienna. And my colleague, Mara Haas, how are you? Where are you joining us from?
Hello. I join you from Vienna, as you are as well, Bahanur. Yes, I'm still working from the office, but you never know like how long it will still stay like this. But yes, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you
And
for
yeah.
joining us. I would like to know, how is the project going? How is the community evolving? And what are you going to do this winter in Vienna?
So just as a very short background, in Vienna, we're working in Floridsdorf. It's a center, like it's one of many centers in Vienna, but one center that was a bit not developed a lot, like in the last decades, I would say, and that needs to be strengthened right now. And we're working closely together in a project with the city of Vienna and also with the University of Applied Arts. So this makes it really interesting, actually, to have these three, three partners involved. So, and we actually we don't like we came up with the idea of, or we ask ourselves, let's start like this, how we make the center, like how we make the residents and also the local entrepreneurs of this central area more engaged, or how to give them the feeling that they can really also like make more use of public spaces themselves, because we saw right now that, or like in our research, we saw that many people don't really feel connected so much to the central area and not really use it for their leisure time. And they just come there, they change from train to go to bus, and then they leave again, but they never really have a reason to stay there. And we thought about, okay, it would not make sense, I think, to just come up with an idea of ourselves and just say, okay, we're going to build a parklet there and we'll see like if people will use it, because probably they just won't. So now we created a concept of, we call it, in English it always sounds a bit strange, it's called places of possibilities, or Ermöglichungsflächen in German. And the idea is we identified certain spots within this central area that should be, like, from a planning perspective, should be more connected, so that also walking is more attractive. For example, to walk like from the train station maybe to the next market, which is really interesting actually, but most people don't know it. So we identified these spots, and now we are launching an open call where people like residents, but also placemakers, local placemakers and entrepreneurs, they can bring in their ideas on how to use these spaces. So most of them are just public spaces, but there are also vacant plinth areas, for example. So they can bring in their ideas, and we promise them, or we offer them our help and our support. On the one side, of course, with our experiences in like designing these places or in organizing events, for example, outside, but also with material costs. So they should not get the feeling that they have to invest now themselves, like time and resources. But we haven't launched the call yet, so we're still in the phase to organizing and to organize a communication concept also, because I think this is one of the hardest things, to find enough people to involve in this call. But yes, we're working on this right now, and we're also happy to receive some tips of you, also maybe how to use digital space to launch this call and to get to the right people. And yes, thank you very much for now. I think we will still have time to open a dialogue and to talk about this.
Thank you very much. We have also an international call for placemaking projects, which tackle the issue of winter placemaking, but also COVID-19 pandemic regulations. So if you have any ideas, if you did already projects in these regards, or you know people who did, just forward them or just apply by yourself. The aim is to create a moment where we exchange more, as we heard is very important, that we use this rather difficult times to connect, to exchange and be visible, and provide some kind of experimentation or solutions and so on, because I'm a mother of two, and everyone has the social background, the community around them, and we really are needing this extra space, and winter shouldn't take this opportunity, this extra space away, because homes, schools, offices are just not enough to exchange. We have to explore more the common spaces. We have to explore more the digital possibilities and create situations where things are shared voluntarily, not with maybe commercial ideas and by commercial companies and social media companies and so on. So it's very important to use this opportunity to create things to get closer. And that brings me again to Nicole. You really have an overview and a lot of examples from many, many places. Would you like to share with us some examples and what could be done? Where do you see potentials?
Yeah, I had been thinking about this possible question, and I have been working. So I give an example of community placemaking efforts that I had with Columbia colleagues. So we worked with which an organization, an NGO in New York called Arts and Minds, and the neuroscientific department and psychology departments at Columbia University, to see how we could look at dementia and Alzheimer through art programs that are museums-based art programs, to bring memory back and to eliminate some of the trauma that patients experience when they are first given the diagnostic or the news that they have Alzheimer or increased dementia. So how do we, at least we cannot stop the disease, but we can prolong the well-being of those people. And I have been thinking now, when I presented, that we are facing similar issues of heightened anxiety with young people. If there is not an opportunity for us, and when I hear Lily talk about these games and developing ideas, if there is not an opportunity for us here to look at the different cities and museum-based programs to start something that maybe in collaboration with schools to really integrate young people and talk about museum spaces, community spaces that would bring in young people, particularly during those dark winter months when they can no longer go to parks or safe spaces, but that we as a group would start developing ideas similar to what you just proposed and presented. They're really terrific ideas, but if we could bring those across cities where we currently are and with our team members in cost actions, and see if maybe museums and community spaces might want to get involved in proposing some digital safe spaces to deal particularly with the anxiety that young people are facing. And I was thinking, I mean, I have also children. So my daughter is working right now on a couple of dolls, for example, that she uses to process some of the anxiety that she is experiencing. And so I have been starting to think, wouldn't it be great to get artists and community-based organizations that have maybe also the connection between global mental health and art-based programs to get involved with us to provide spaces and opportunities for those young people who, again, have not the opportunity to go and have internship programs that might have been connecting their ideas and personal problems, but also their professional opportunities. And I will stop right here because I'm sure you have lots of ideas to contribute here, but I think there could be an opportunity to develop something like this in the digital space.
I think that would be just amazing because, as said, there are so many offers, but by commercial companies where we don't know the sources, the intentions, and so on, and especially with vulnerable people who are old or who have dementia, who are maybe not so used to technology, or kids who have to use all those things but are not aware of the dangers and so on. So it is, I think, a great opportunity for all organizations, as you said, museums, schools, and NGOs to get together and use this time as an opportunity to develop something which is counterbalancing what is commercially available with intransparent intentions. So, Conor, would you like to reflect on this community issue with digitalization?
Yeah, and I'm intrigued by all of the examples that Clara and Anna and particularly Bruno gave. And across, there was a theme in there about how to assess one form of interaction. Is that better, or one form of engagement or dialogue, is that better than another form? And I'm intrigued, coming at this from outside, coming at it from a business perspective, I'm intrigued that the goal for interaction, that's often, once you create interaction, that the goal has been met in placemaking. Now, I could be completely wrong, but it has knock-on effects to what Nicole was suggesting. It has impacts for mental health. It has other knock-on effects. And from my reading of the literature, that connection hasn't really been teased out. And I think more of some work done on, okay, the goal to get everyone to engage, that's a noble, great goal. But to move us a little bit further to go, well, is one form of engagement better than another form of engagement? And that's what I'm interested in. And I think that's where I'm bringing my knowledge management hat to the table. And I would be interested in seeing whether putting a piano in a park, we all saw the wonderful forms of engagement that came out of the use of that artifact. But I kind of got the impression the goal was to create the engagement. But there are these other knock-on effects, and I'd like to see placemaking talking in those terms. Now, I'm interested in what is productive engagement, and that's kind of a business hat looking at it. And I think that would be useful for businesses to think that way, because it would guide them towards, well, this form of engagement or this activity in placemaking will create a different form of engagement over this kind of activity. So the goals of a company, of an architectural firm, of urban planners, might be informed a little bit more that way. And I'm wondering what other people think of that, because maybe I'm coming at it from that particular perspective. So that's my question, and that's my reflection for everyone.
Conor has a question. How do you, who wants to react on this? Maybe Bruno, or would you like to take it? Great. You're muted, Bruno. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Found it. Conor, that's interesting. It's the thing that Lily and I were actually also working on right now, is that, yes, and activation, first of all, get people on board. Then while they're on board, keep them on board, engagement. That's all great. But we wanted to get as far away as possible, even though we like barbecue, but from the, let's all have a barbecue in the street and we're all happy, shiny people. We want to see, can we do something productive, something functional in that time? And not so much as in we already know what the goal is and we just need them to produce something. But can we at least come up with, let's say, sort of a half product, which is what you could call these design criteria that come from the people that you work with, that with a little bit of translation work fit perfectly into existing demands for input from the city of Rotterdam in this case, but maybe also businesses. I can imagine, you have maybe 20 entrepreneurs alongside a big boulevard that now all have to close down, for instance, right now in Holland. So what are they going to do? There's this outdoor space, it's not being used. Can they reimagine somehow something? And could they involve the community in that? I think then it has a purpose, but I would say also in regard to what has been said before, we have to let go of the idea that a certain function in the outdoor space has been gone, and that we want to replace it, like bring it back in a more playful way. I think maybe we should let go of those functions. Maybe that's the real challenge, the possibility space, right? That Mara's been talking about. So if we, even Foucault said, like, we're in a society where everything has its place and each place has its function, and therefore the people in that place should have the function, that the function of the place, like everything is so set. Now we're basically saying, look, you're not allowed to go outside, so it cannot have the functions it always had. Are we trying to push that back in or replace it online? Or are we going to say, well, maybe we should reframe the open space now and say, what if it had no function? What if it had the opposite function of what it always has had? This might be some crazy thinking involved in there, but if you structure this process, right, this workshop, for instance, you say, let's envision Rotterdam as Chernobyl. And everything, there's radiation. We just play that there's radiation. We ask people to treat it as Chernobyl, and they cannot be outside for longer than 10 minutes. You know how there was this artist that went on a motorbike through Chernobyl to take pictures and get the hell out before she got, cancer. So suddenly crazy ideas might pop up that might lead to, hey, that's not such a bad idea, because we are maybe these entrepreneurs in the street, and of course, there is no real radiation. But this triggered some ideas in our head of maybe the fastest takeaway food, the fastest fast food takeaway, whatever, run past 10 shops and get a little piece of food everywhere and get the hell out before, and new formats of collecting your food. I don't know what, but
can I respond to that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I'm coming at it from what I've said, when it looks like it's a business rationale, it looks like you're, and I take the point about, structuring it. Mm-hmm. What within the literature I'm looking at is that you're trying to create as many interactions or density of communications. Mm-hmm. So the multiplicity of usages happens, and it becomes a layered experience when you go into any kind of space. And that's the way I would look at it. You're just trying to create as many interactions, so it allows all of these opportunities to come out of it. And I take your point about function. I didn't think I was going to hear about Foucault today, but I absolutely love that point because I'm a fan of that. But I take your point, and there's a balancing act that has to happen about function, and that's not something I would be acquainted with in the literature. But I think that's a great point.
I think this is actually what we have been also seeing in the summer. There were a lot of experimental placemaking initiatives, but coming from the city. Like we had the Place City walks in Vienna, where streets for the cars were repurposed for bicycling or for walking or for playing and so on. And I think now with winter, the challenges differ, of course, more, but I'd like to hear from Anna, how do the placemakers take this business model rethinking, thinking out of the box, repurposing places and buildings? How do you have any examples, or would you like to react on this topic?
Hi, yes, thank you. So it depends on the context that you're in. Whether you are able to go out into the streets or you have to do things pretty much entirely digitally. But as we know, there have been a lot of different seasonal placemaking examples in the past, things ranging from artists rethinking how the space can be used to more architecturally, landscape architecture, and then infrastructure for using bridges over play spaces. And now, of course, for example, the bottom left picture in Boston, that's not something that we can feasibly do right now. But we're really interested to see, of course, as Nicole mentioned about the wintertime being a risky time for mental health, and then also our public spaces and artists, work by artists is also at risk right now. And the conditions of the winter with light, warmth, shelter from the snow or the wind, slippery, in color even, with more bleaker times with less leaves, less foliage. We're really interested to take this further and see what further tools can we use that are more specific to your context. So looking at what are some winter and placemaking proof tools, and we're looking from the wider network to collect them and share and learn from different contexts. So that way, whether you're perhaps in Spain where you're not as likely to be out on the street, or maybe on the countryside in the Netherlands, it's a completely different scenario. And seeing maybe if you apply this placemaking tool or this tool for connection, that as Conor mentioned, there isn't necessarily a goal there, but there's an engagement. They engage, but what did the outcome come to in each context? It can be completely different. And something that we do see as a goal, not necessarily the end goal, but a goal in the process is a sense of belonging and feeling that you belong in your local community and you connect emotionally with that and feel a sense of a pride and ownership in where you live.
Thank you very much, Anna. This brings me back to Clara and Tamara. I don't know who wants to react first. You two have to work in a very different context. In one time we have a school with small businesses around, and in the Vienna case we have a very long way from the train station or from the metro station to a marketplace where you have a very different scale, and the community is also different. While you have in the school the pupils or the students which are already defined and you can talk to them, and in Floridsdorf there are the citizens, there are the shop owners and so on, but the community as the owner and so on is not defined yet. And we are entering the winter phase where you have the implementation. How are you going to work in this different context, and what is the ultimate goal? What would you like to achieve within the next 4 or 5 months? Maybe Clara first.
So we have an upcoming collaboration with an artist to build a light installation to light up the schoolyard, because the schoolyard is fenced, and now that we have like the sitting places where you can like hang out at least for a while outside without, like, before there were these concrete stars where you couldn't sit on at all. And I think, yeah, creating light and creating a possibility to interact with it will be a good thing for the schoolyard. Just to kind of, it says the life to come. So it's also kind of a question, what does that mean, the life after the pandemic, or also the life for the young people to come? And then we're also planning on a participatory budget with the citizens to, with the young people, to kind of create activities and to also kind of engage people to think about how can we get creative and how can we create these new forms of dialogue together. And that's the plan for now.
Thank you very much, Clara. Mara, would you like to reflect on this?
Yes. So first of all, thank you to all the rest, like, for the interesting examples and input. Yes. So as I said, I think in Vienna it's especially, like, as in many cities as well, but maybe not in Oslo. It's especially difficult also to find new ways of using winter, because normally people, like, okay, in December there are many people outside because we have the Christmas markets and people really like to go there. But this year it's going to be different because I don't think they will be closed, but they will be really smaller. And we are now trying to find ways of showing people what's possible in winter times. And here we also, like, in the whole city of Vienna actually is now looking to cities in the north, I think, because they have much more experience. So as you said, like Clara, with the light installations, for example, this is something still new for Vienna. But on the other hand, we're like, first of all, we need these new ideas, I think, also to show the people what's possible to do. But on the other hand, we want to find ways to also include people, like local entrepreneurs, for example, on the long term. And because our project will end in like half a year to a year. So, and we want to start something that will also go on afterwards. And for this, yeah, it's very important to include them now from the beginning on and to develop these ideas with them together. But to get these ideas, like to find like common projects that we want to build together, for example, and I don't know, when it's about lightening the street, for example, which has been a topic already in the interviews and workshops. Then we don't want to just do it ourselves and leave it there and let them use it, but we want to develop it with with them, so that they also can use it for their shops, for example, and or for the schools, that they can also use the spaces. So we're still in this phase of communication, of telling people, okay, we're doing this call for you, so you can use it and you can bring in your ideas, but we will help you with that. So you don't have to come with a complete concept that is ready to be implemented, but it's enough if you tell us, okay, it would be nice to have a new lighting in the street, so that maybe the children can use it after school and don't feel scared or whatever. And we are there to support them in implementing it. And we are also there to connect them to placemakers or to designers or artists who have already more experience in Vienna. And yeah, so we are trying to connect also placemakers that are more experienced and people that would call themselves placemakers, but have really nice ideas actually to transform public spaces.
Thank you very much, Mara. We have Rosina Spinai from the audience on Facebook. She's also involved in the Place City project as a consultant. She's saying incredibly important topic of mental health. Thanks for covering this. Some creative tools of empowering youth to express themselves through creativity, which helps their mental health. My eldest son during these challenges months decided to video the Brussels city from his perspective. He will continue to do this. He'll be happy to share creative methods and digital tools. So that's bringing me more or less back to Nicole. What do you think about this idea? Would there be a space in your magazine, and how could we continue this collaboration and work on ground, capturing the cities, activating places, activating students, and so on? How can we then translate and invite and collaborate with others? Where do you see the opportunities here?
We in our cost action are already thinking about collecting cases and case study for our May issue. And I'm thinking right now, hearing all of what you have to say, if we could maybe even center it about global mental health and the city space and what we are all doing together. And I love the idea. And I think what we could do then is we have a Europe Now campus section where maybe we would look at bottom-up initiatives driven by schools or young people, and we would just showcase what you're all doing in various cities. I'm also thinking from what you have been sharing just now, whether there is not an opportunity to combine the whole effort to light spaces with, and you mentioned artists. There are artists that are right now looking for engagements. They're the ones that are very badly hit by the pandemic. If there is not a way to say, okay, we have the global mental health challenge, particularly in young people, but we have also artists who are really looking for new opportunities. If we could not, and I'm looking to Conor here, engage policymakers, trying to combine efforts to change our thinking. I mean, if we have these bottom-up initiatives, perhaps, and we are combining it to say we're tackling global mental health by looking at the most creative among us and those that are most affected right now, with the help of all of us, if there is not an opportunity to get additional funding for schools, for people who want to do and engage with this topic in our various cities, and or even to talk about right now in our cost action, when money cannot be used for face-to-face networking in cities, for example, if given the importance of the topic, we might not try to change some of the policies of the European Commission to say we are looking at new initiatives and ways by bringing in light and ideas to tackle mental health issues by engaging those that are affected by mental health and anxiety, to get some of the money diverted into a new funding stream and pot, because it has such significance, and it is not often at the forefront of when we think of placemaking, for example. So all in all, I'm very open to hearing your ideas. I would love to combine those efforts and publish, to say we work together and think about it on an artistic space in the journal, for example, in May, looking through what we can all come up with and during the winter month now. And yes, I would love to hear ideas and love to stay engaged. And thank you for the person just writing on Facebook. I think that's a very important issue. So.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Conor, you were mentioned and you can react.
Yeah, I reiterate everything Nicole is saying, and the issues of, mental health, and, when you have limited resources, and particularly the restrictions in how we can communicate effectively in a virtual world, when all of those other forms of engagement are taken away from us, as they are right now. I think it is important that we somehow have a way of having an understanding of what's more effective communication, or what's more effective engagement, or what's less effective, as a way to understand all of the tools that I think I'm going to go and look at the placemaking toolbox after this, because to me, there's a way of applying what I'm thinking about to those tools. And I'm certainly interested to see how effective I can say, well, this activity is probably less effective, or that. But, I take the point, you have to have multiple ways of communicating happening at the same time. And you have to have, the richness of that communication is really important. And I think that's the message I would give today, from my perspective. That's the agenda I would have from a research point of view.
Thank you very much, Conor. How about the others? Mara, Anna, Clara, Bruno, Lily, Ioana? Would you like to react on this? Because I think you are really working on ground, and I think there is a lot of possibility to exchange, to support each other, and also to react and maybe feedback each other's process. And there's also an open invitation to every community, every city to join us this winter to test, to experiment, to try new things out, to engage the policymakers or decision makers, to change the surrounding and think about your food court in your city. So would you like to react, Lily or Ioana?
Sure. Yeah, well, I think kind of reiterating what Bruno was saying, that we have all these limitations right now, and they can feel very serious and very dampening to all of our plans and all of our desires, that like the things that we would normally be doing right now. But I guess the thing that's kind of keeping me going is really using all of these limitations as an invitation to be creative and to play with these new rules. And I don't think that public space is taken away. I don't think that we can no longer interact with each other outside. I think all of these things are possible, but they require a bit more maybe radical thinking, reframing, kind of really going outside of what we would normally do and how we would normally solve these problems. So we, Ioana and Bruno and I are all doing things on the ground, as you say, continuing with our community initiatives around urban games. And we would love to be in touch with people who maybe are policymakers or who have ways to support us in doing that. So if anyone is one of those people, then please be in touch. And yeah, I think that despite the fact that it is so serious, it's a chance to play. So that would be my final note. I don't know if Ioana, you have something to say. I know you were going to say something earlier.
I mean, I fully support what you're saying, and at the same time, I find that it's such a moment to like reframe this like speed of doing things, and also maybe as designers or placemakers, not focus so much on the outcome and let like the initiatives and whatever we're trying be an experiment, which isn't a quantifiable success. Because I think like there's a lot of damage control happening right now in terms of how can we like make sure we're as busy and as like frantic as we used to be. And on the contrary, I find that if we do have the possibility and the privilege to slow down and analyze how these things can happen on a much more resilient and much more considered level, in which the result isn't the success per se, but it's more the long-term activation of a mindset. So like retraining ways of thinking about things rather than, oh, this happened in 6 months. So I'm really interested in policies that allow 5-year plans and that don't stipulate 100% participation is a success. And how can we also support institutions and especially European funds and international funds to allow a much more unquantifiable success, to say so. And because also I really want to emphasize the importance of cross-pollination and of people that don't come from a design background or have any practice in so-called academic play or like researched play and just like real play when you were young. So that's enough experience to allow us to create interesting things. And I'm interested in how can we support those? How can we train people to allow themselves to think freely? How can we as maybe more experienced placemakers go back into these roots, into these community leaders and talk there and put funds there and like allow it in a less hierarchical way, like allow things to dissipate. And yeah, I'm interested in that perspective of things, of slow dissipating information without quantifying it, I guess. And I think there's a lot of initiatives that are going on which are in this way, and I'm very happy to be here. And thank you for the invitation. And yeah, thank you so much.
Ioana. Mara, would you like to reflect, say your last words, because you are actually trying to create these potentials for Floridsdorf or for Vienna in general?
Yeah, yes. So we planned this concept already in spring and wanted to implement it over the summer because we said, okay, it's nice, then it's warm outside and people are more willing to be outside and use public space. But then the pandemic came, so we had to change our plans because we wanted to have, or our idea was, okay, people will have maybe concerts outside and really like have a lot of people there. And of course, we couldn't do it. But actually now it's for us, it's even better, not better, but it's really a new challenge, but a new chance as well to not only to make like more awareness of how you can use like each public space actually in front of your door, but also to tell them, okay, you can also be outside when it's cold. And there are also maybe nice ideas around the world to even use this space. And especially now because over the summer we saw that people actually are really using public space more because restaurants were closed and clubs are closed. So you really started to meet outside in public spaces. And of course, when the weather is not nice, people will ask themselves, okay, but what are we doing now? Because we cannot also, I mean, of course you can maybe meet in your flat, but also not with so many people. So there needs to be some kind of solutions to that, or maybe people will come up with their own ideas themselves and find new ways of meeting outside in the winter. But we're trying to tackle this issue a little bit and to react on that, because so for us we see this pandemic situation not only like as a like we see it as a challenge, but to find new solutions, I would say. Yeah.
Thank you, Mara. Saloma is asking, totally agree, Ioana, and I think it's also connecting to what Mara said. The creation and the conversation should happen with non-urbanists, non-experts, non-placemakers, but how do we get them involved? I think this is for all the projects presented today a central topic, and maybe as one of our last speakers, Clara would like to enlighten us. How can we engage people? How can we involve people who are non-experts?
So we worked a lot with our high school students who don't have any experience in creating public spaces, but who have a lot of ideas and wishes. And I think like really listening to the people and giving them the opportunity to connect. I think we do need experts, but we really do need non-experts. So I think creating those spaces to listen and then also to kind of co-create and together create something new that is really important.
Thank you very much, Clara. We are passing our reserved time. If you have anything to comment now, feel free to do now. Otherwise, we would be closing the session, this dialogue, and yeah, see you in 2 weeks. Is there anything which we should mention? Anna, would you like to say a few words about the call or anything about?
Absolutely. Spoke about it a little bit throughout the panel, but Placemaking Europe and with Place City is opening up a call for placemaking, for winter and pandemic-proof placemaking, to understand what are the as Lily said, what are the radical and ways that people are rethinking public space, and how can we see these in different contexts and understand the outcomes. So really looking to bring this together collectively as a wider community, making it as inclusive and open as possible, and trying these things out in our public spaces in the coming months. So you can find more information about that on our website at placemaking-europe.eu. It's underneath the projects. And we can also share the link underneath the Cooperative City Facebook page.
Thank you very much, Anna. I think that was it for this dialogue. We will meet each other in 2 weeks again, and I'm very, 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 very thankful for all the inputs today, for all the expertise we got from different corners of this world. I would love to continue this discussion and concentrate on the creation of potentials after these challenges are pressing us and challenging us to be more creative, think out of the box, do things in new ways, and so on. So I would like to be in touch with you, and yeah, see you in 2 weeks. My name is Bahanur Nasya from Utopian. My colleagues have been shared on the chat with you. You can reach all of them, and you can also contact us, and we will make the connection. If you have ideas how you can improve your winter placemaking, your winter places, or if you want to just engage and share your experiences, just drop us a line and we will be happy to bring your experience into this dialogue process and make things better for everyone. Take care. Have a nice and lovely afternoon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.